The morning of the will reading, I sat in Mr. Patterson's law office trying to ignore the weight of my sister Margaret's smug stare. The leather chair beneath me felt too warm, too constraining, as if it were trying to swallow me whole, just like everything else in my life lately. As we proceed with the reading of Harold and Elizabeth Bennet's last will and testament, Mr. Patterson's voice droned on, but I barely heard him. Instead, I found myself fixated on the gold-framed family photo on his desk. Mom, Dad, Margaret, and me. It was taken the day Margaret graduated from medical school. They all looked so proud, so happy. I wasn't in the photo. I had been working that day, trying to keep the old bookstore running. To our eldest daughter, Margaret Bennett, Mr. Patterson continued, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. We leave our primary estate valued at $12.4 million. Our vacation home in the Hamptons, all investment portfolios totaling approximately $8.7 million. And the list went on and on. With each item, Margaret's smile grew wider, more satisfied. She sat there in her designer suit, perfectly manicured nails drumming against her leather portfolio, looking every bit the successful neurosurgeon she'd become. And to our younger daughter, Olivia Bennett, Mr. Patterson paused, shuffling his papers. I held my breath, though I already knew what was coming. We leave Bennett's books, the family bookstore, including all its contents and the building deed. Margaret didn't even try to hide her laugh. "Oh, Liv," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy, "at least you got something you're familiar with. After all, you've spent the last 10 years of your life wasting away in that dusty old shop." I kept my face carefully blank, though my nails dug crescents into my palms. The bookstore. Of course. The same bookstore that had been bleeding money for years. The same one Dad had called my stubborn mistake when I dropped out of business school to help run it. The same store he'd refused to invest in, claiming it was a dying business in a digital age. "There are some additional documents regarding the bookstore," Mr. Patterson added, sliding a thick envelope across his mahogany desk. "Your father was quite specific about certain aspects of the inheritance." I took the envelope, feeling the weight of it in my hands. It seemed too heavy for just property documents. "Well," Margaret stood, smoothing her skirt, "I should get going. Some of us have important jobs to return to." She paused at the door, turning back with a practiced, concerned expression. "Liv, if you need help selling that old place, just let me know. I'm sure we could find a developer interested in the location." The door clicked shut behind her, leaving me alone with Mr. Patterson. He cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Miss Bennett, Olivia, there's something else you should know. Your father left specific instructions that the bookstore cannot be sold for at least 1 year from his death. Any attempt to sell before then will result in the property reverting to Margaret." I let out a bitter laugh. Of course, one last way to control me from beyond the grave. Carrying the envelope, I left the law office and walked the familiar 3 blocks to Bennett's Books. The store stood exactly as it had for the past 50 years. A 3-story Victorian building with faded blue paint and gold lettering on the windows. The Stilo ZD sign hung crooked on the front door, just as I'd left it this morning. Inside, the smell of old books and wood polish wrapped around me like a familiar blanket. Dust motes danced in the afternoon sunlight streaming through the tall windows. The ancient floorboards creaked beneath my feet as I made my way to the back office. I dropped the envelope on the cluttered desk and sank into the worn leather chair that had been my father's, then mine. A year. I had to keep the struggling business afloat for another year before I could even consider selling it. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd finally given me the store, but with strings attached that would probably sink me financially. Sighing, I opened the envelope. Property deed, tax documents, insurance papers, and something else. A small leather-bound book fell into my lap, its pages yellow with age. The cover was unmarked except for a small symbol embossed in the corner. A compass rose surrounded by what looked like ancient script. I opened it carefully, the spine crackling. The first page was covered in my father's precise handwriting. "My dearest Olivia, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you're probably angry with me. You have every right to be. But there are things about Bennett's Books that you don't know. Things I couldn't tell you until now. This store isn't just a bookstore, it never was. The true story begins in 1923, when your great-grandfather first opened these doors. But to understand it, you'll need to go to the basement, the real basement. Behind the false wall in the northwest corner, you'll find a door. The key is taped to the back of this journal. Be careful who you trust with what you find. There are people who have been watching this store for years, waiting for this moment. I'm sorry for everything. I hope one day you'll understand why we had to keep you in the dark." "Dad," my hands trembled as I turned the journal over. Sure enough, taped to the back cover was an old brass key, green with age. I'd worked in this store my entire adult life. How had I never known about a false wall in the basement? I grabbed a flashlight from the desk drawer and headed down the basement stairs, my father's words echoing in my mind. The basement had always been just storage. Old books, damaged inventory, holiday decorations. Nothing special. The northwest corner was stacked with boxes of outdated tax records. It took me 20 minutes to clear them away, revealing a section of wall that looked exactly like every other part of the basement. But when I ran my hands over it, I felt the slightest seam in the plaster. My heart pounding, I pressed against the wall. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft click, a section of the wall swung inward, revealing a narrow doorway. The brass key fitted perfectly into the lock. Beyond the door, a set of stairs led down into darkness. The beam of my flashlight revealed walls lined with built-in shelves. But these weren't filled with ordinary books. Each shelf held leather-bound volumes similar to the journal I found, along with boxes, small chests, and objects I couldn't identify. At the bottom of the stairs, I found myself in a room that shouldn't have existed. It was massive, stretching far beyond what should have been possible given the building's foundations. The air felt different here, cooler, charged with something I couldn't explain. Row after row of shelves extended into the shadows, but these weren't filled with normal books. These volumes were locked away behind glass, their spines marked with symbols similar to the one on my father's journal. Display cases held objects that seemed to shimmer in my flashlight beam, crystals, ancient-looking artifacts, things I had no names for. In the center of the room stood a large desk, its surface covered in maps and documents. A logbook lay open, its pages filled with entries in different handwritings. The most recent entry was dated just 3 days ago. Mr. Chen requests access to the cartographer's codex. Payment received. Item will be returned within standard 48-hour window. Below that was a figure that made me catch my breath. $500,000. I sank into the desk chair, my mind spinning. What exactly had my father given me? What was Bennett's books really hiding? Before I could process it all, I heard the bell above the store's front door chime. Footsteps moved across the floor above. "Hello?" a man's voice called out. "I have an appointment regarding one of your special collections." I looked at my father's journal, then at the logbook with its $500,000 transaction. Clearly, there was much more to my inheritance than a dusty old bookstore. Standing up, I straightened my shoulders and headed for the stairs. It was time to find out exactly what kind of business I'd inherited. I climbed the stairs from the hidden basement, my mind racing. The footsteps above continued, moving between the shelves with purpose. This wasn't a casual browser. They knew exactly what they were looking for. Taking a deep breath, I emerged from behind the office door. A man in an impeccable suit stood near the rare book section, his back to me. Even from behind, everything about him screamed money, from his perfectly tailored jacket to his Italian leather shoes. "Can I help you?" I asked, proud that my voice didn't shake. He turned, and I recognized him immediately. Alexander Wright, the tech billionaire who'd been in the news recently for paying $40 million for a rare manuscript. What was he doing in my modest bookstore? "Aha, you must be Harold's daughter," he said, extending his hand. "I'm sorry for your loss. Your father was instrumental in helping me build my private collection." I shook his hand, noting his careful choice of words. "Thank you. I understand you have an appointment." He nodded, glancing around before lowering his voice. "Yes, regarding the Flamel Codex. Your father promised to have it ready for viewing today." The logbook in the basement flashed through my mind. I made a quick decision. "Of course. If you'll follow me?" I led him to the hidden basement, watching his reaction carefully as I opened the concealed door. His expression didn't change. Clearly, he'd been here before. In the basement's strange light, Wright moved with familiar ease to one of the glass cases. "I see Harold kept everything exactly as it should be." "Mr. Wright," I said, settling behind the desk. "Perhaps you could help me understand exactly what kind of business my father was running here." He studied me for a long moment. "He didn't tell you anything, did he?" "Typical Harold. always playing things close to the vest. He gestured at the surrounding shelves. What you see here is one of the most exclusive collections of esoteric and occult manuscripts in the world. But more importantly, it's a lending library for a very select clientele. A lending library? I looked at the logbook with its enormous sums. At $500,000 per loan? Wright laughed. For some of the lesser items, yes, the truly valuable pieces. He pointed to a locked case in the corner. Those can command fees in the millions. Over the next hour, Wright explained everything. Bennett's Books wasn't just a bookstore, it was a front for a highly sophisticated operation that served wealthy collectors of the strange and mysterious. The public store above was real, but it was the basement that generated the true income. Your father, Wright said, was a curator of secrets. These books, artifacts, and manuscripts, they contain knowledge that certain people will pay anything to access. But they can't own them outright. The items must stay here, protected, only available for brief, supervised study. Why? I asked. Because some knowledge is too dangerous to be owned privately. Your great-grandfather understood this when he started the collection. Your father continued the tradition, and now, he gestured to me, now it's your responsibility. I sat back, my mind whirling with implications. The store above has been losing money for years. By design, Wright nodded. The perfect cover. Who would suspect a struggling bookstore of housing one of the world's most valuable private collections? Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. Talk to a developer friend. He's willing to offer $800,000 for the building. Think about it, Liv. It's more than that store will make in 20 years. I smiled, thinking of the logbook's most recent entry. The store made that much in 2 transactions. Mr. Wright, I said, about the Flamel Codex. 2 weeks later, I sat in my office, my real office, in the renovated 3rd floor of Bennett's Books. The public store still operated below, but now it was thriving with carefully curated rare editions. The real business, however, continued in the basement. My father's journal had contained everything I needed: client lists, security protocols, pricing structures. The collection had generated over $97 million in lending fees last year alone. No wonder billionaires kept finding excuses to visit our struggling bookstore. The bell above the door chimed. Margaret's voice drifted up from below, talking to one of my employees. I'm looking for my sister, is she in? I heard footsteps on the stairs, then Margaret appeared in my doorway. She stopped short, taking in the completely renovated space with its elegant furniture and state-of-the-art security system. Liv. Her eyes fell on the rare first edition displayed in a climate-controlled case on my wall. Is that a real Gutenberg Bible page? Just a reproduction, I lied smoothly. Did you need something? She seemed flustered by my calm demeanor. I wanted to talk to you about that developer's offer. He's willing to go up to $1 million now. I turned my computer screen toward her, showing the store's latest quarterly report. Margaret's eyes widened as she saw the numbers. That's impossible. How? Turns out rare books are quite profitable if you know the right collectors. I stood up. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a client meeting. A Saudi prince is interested in viewing some of our special collection. Special collection? Margaret's voice rose. What special collection? It's just a dusty old bookstore. I smiled, remembering all the times she'd mocked my choice to work here. You know, Margaret, that's exactly what Mom and Dad wanted everyone to think. They were very good at keeping secrets. I paused. By the way, how's the new house hunting going? I heard the Hamptons property needs extensive repairs. She flushed. The inheritance she'd received, while substantial, came with its own headaches. Property taxes, maintenance costs, investment management fees. Meanwhile, I had inherited a turnkey operation that practically printed money. I don't understand, she said finally. Dad always said this place was worthless. No, I corrected her. Dad always said knowledge is priceless. We just assumed he was being philosophical. I checked my watch. My client will be here soon. We can catch up at the next family dinner. I'm hosting at my new penthouse. After she left, I went down to the basement. The secret room hummed with its usual energy, the collected knowledge of centuries waiting patiently on its shelves. My father's journal lay open on the desk. I'd finally finished reading it all. The story of Bennett's books was more incredible than I'd imagined. 5 generations of my family serving as guardians of forbidden knowledge, keepers of secrets that the wealthy and powerful would pay fortunes just to glimpse. My phone buzzed, another client requesting access to the collection. The fee would be $2.3 million for 48 hours of supervised study. I smiled as I typed my response. The bookstore above might look like a relic of the past, but down here, business was booming. Opening a logbook, I began a new entry. My handwriting joined the generations that had come before me, continuing a legacy hidden in plain sight. Let the world think Bennett's Books was just another struggling bookstore. Sometimes the best treasures are the ones nobody knows exist. Margaret could keep her millions. I had inherited something far more valuable. A secret empire built on humanity's endless hunger for forbidden knowledge. And business, I thought as I heard the front door chime again, was very good indeed.